The light before dawn revealed the enormous field stretching beyond the oak tree. To the little ant standing at the edge of her burrow, the world felt overwhelming. Every morning, she woke up tired. Her legs ached from the miles she had traveled the day before, and a quiet voice in her mind whispered the same thought: what's the point? The field was endless. The stalks of grass towered over her like skyscrapers. If she thought about crossing the entire field or gathering enough food for winter, she froze. So she stopped looking at the whole field. Instead, she narrowed her focus to the next few inches in front of her. That morning, she spotted a single grain of millet lying in the dirt. It was rough, heavy, and difficult to lift, but she didn't think about winter reserves or survival. She thought only about the next step. Just this step. Just this breath. She lifted the grain and began the slow walk back to her burrow. Step by step, she moved across the field. She wasn't fast or impressive, but she kept moving. When she finally dropped the grain into her storage room, she didn't celebrate. She simply rested. She had done what she promised herself she would do. By afternoon, the summer heat had settled over the field. The insects buzzed loudly, but the loudest of all was the grasshopper. He was vibrant, energetic, and powerful. With one leap, he could travel farther than the ant could in hours. He landed near her path, surrounded by a mess of torn grass and scattered seed pods. "Little ant," he said with a laugh, "why do you move so slowly? Look at this field. If you want real results, you have to think bigger." The ant balanced her grain against a pebble and looked up. "It is a large field," she said quietly. "Exactly," the grasshopper replied. "You're carrying one grain at a time while I gather entire clusters. I make massive moves." The ant looked at the pile around him. The seeds were scattered, unprotected, and already drying out in the sun. "And where will you put all of that before nightfall?" she asked. The grasshopper waved dismissively. "I'll deal with that later. Right now, it's about action. Big action. You're trapped in a boring routine." The ant looked down at her grain. "I used to wait for motivation too," she admitted. "I used to think I needed huge energy to make progress. But every time I waited for the perfect feeling, I stayed stuck. So now, I don't focus on the whole field. I focus on today." The grasshopper laughed. "Some of us are built for giant leaps, not tiny steps." Then he launched himself back into the air, chasing another burst of excitement. Weeks passed. The heat grew worse. The ground cracked beneath the sun, and many insects became exhausted trying to survive the harsh conditions. One morning, the ant woke up with no motivation at all. Her body felt heavy. The field looked lifeless. Even walking outside felt difficult. She sat at the entrance of her burrow and argued with herself. Skipping one day won't matter. That was the moment most creatures quit. The grasshopper certainly would have. Whenever conditions became uncomfortable, he waited for inspiration to return. But the ant had learned something important: motivation does not come before action. Action creates motivation. She realized she didn't need to feel inspired. She only needed to begin. So she forced one leg forward. Then another. She walked into the dry heat, found a small kernel of wheat, and carried it home. The next day, she did it again. When rainstorms turned the dirt into deep mud, she adjusted her footing and carried another grain. She stopped depending on emotions to decide her actions. She became someone who simply showed up. By the time winter arrived, the field had completely changed. The grass had died. Snow covered the ground. Food disappeared beneath frozen earth. The grasshopper, once full of energy and confidence, had grown weak from hunger. The piles of food he once gathered in bursts were gone. Desperate, he remembered the ant. He struggled through the snow to her burrow and knocked weakly at the door. The ant opened it. Warm air drifted out from inside. Behind her was an organized storehouse filled with grains, seeds, and dried kernels stacked neatly along the walls. The grasshopper stared in disbelief. "How did you build all of this?" he whispered. "I worked harder than anyone during the summer. I made huge moves. But I have nothing left." The ant picked up a single grain of corn and placed it gently in his hand. "You're still looking at the mountain," she said. The grasshopper frowned. "This room looks like the result of one massive effort," the ant continued. "But it wasn't. If I had tried to gather everything at once, the weight would have crushed me. If I had waited for perfect conditions, I never would have started." She pointed to the shelves around them. "Every grain here was carried on a day I didn't feel like doing it. This isn't a monument to strength. It's a monument to consistency. I simply refused to miss too many days in a row." The grasshopper lowered his head. For the first time, he understood. He had spent his life chasing dramatic breakthroughs, giant leaps, and sudden bursts of inspiration. He dismissed small daily actions because they felt too slow and insignificant. But those small actions were the very thing that created lasting results. And that truth applies far beyond a field. Right now, you may be staring at your own overwhelming goal. Maybe it's improving your health. Maybe it's building a business. Maybe it's writing a book, paying off debt, changing careers, or rebuilding your life. The mistake most people make is focusing on the entire mountain. They wait for perfect motivation. They try to change everything overnight. They burn themselves out with one massive effort, then disappear for weeks. But real transformation rarely happens through dramatic moments. It happens through repeated daily actions that seem almost too small to matter. Writing one page today will not finish your book. But it makes you someone who writes. Saving a small amount of money today will not make you wealthy. But it makes you someone who invests in the future. Exercising for 15 minutes today will not completely transform your body. But it builds the identity of someone who takes care of themselves. Success is rarely built through intensity alone. It is built through consistency. So stop trying to carry the entire field at once. Lower your gaze. Focus on the next few inches of your life. Find your grain for today. Lift it. Carry it. Put it down. Then come back tomorrow and do it again.